for the drums.
Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, Keith.
Hey, so we're back to do another mental model.
All right. This
Yeah,
is number four.
number four. I don't know if I can remember them all in sequence, but we've done
Hmm.
Tableau prefers tidy data. We'll look at that a little bit here.
Hmm.
We've done the Tableau query process, and we've talked about the very first question you should ask when you connect to any new data set,
Which is, what is the grain of your data?
which is what is the grain of the data? What's the grain of the
Hmm.
data that you're connecting to?
Yep.
Here today, what I want to do is continue to build upon those scaffolds that we've laid out before and continue our journey down this path towards kind of having a holistic understanding of mechanically what's going on inside of Tableau.
Hmm.
Today's conversation is to explore what I find are two differing alternative ways to look at the word dimension.
Okay.
One is a domain understanding,
Hmm.
and the other is a physical understanding. And just for context, we've discussed a little bit earlier the etymology of things is actually really interesting. A record in the data set comes from the paper spreadsheet, which originated thousands
Hmm.
of years ago. And it was literally a recording of observations as some quantity of things passed through an observation station. We've also discussed in the past Hadley Wickham's just vast, infinite wisdom when he says, like happy families, all data sets are alike, but somehow every messy data set is uniquely messy in its own special way.
Hmm.
And that we covered just really to lay out his thesis on tidy data. And we discussed that as sense makers, what we're aiming to do is to make meaning, to make sense of the data, and that this tidy data structure is actually a standardized format that connects the structure of the data to its meaning, which then facilitates that sense making process. It makes extracting meaning from the data much easier because we've got variables, observations, and values that are each laid out in columns, rows, and cells. And then this kind of connection of the structure of the data to its meaning then facilitates the sense making process.
Yep.
And just to continue to lay out kind of some of the things that
Hmm.
we've discussed in the past before we go further, we also looked at the fact that I was able to identify two differing definitions of the word data. One is facts and statistics gathered together for reference and analysis. And the other definition is quantities, characters, or symbols upon which operations are performed by a computer.
Yep. In a way, I really like these two definitions because they get at this thing, which is kind of at the heart of thinking about mental models and doing them, is that there's the way we think about the data, the facts and statistics side, and there's the way the computer is working with the data is a separate piece. And the tidy data discussion and bringing that up right now, that's about taking the data in whatever way it exists and making it so it can work more easily with our computer-based tools.
Yeah, that's
So we're
right.
in this space of going back and forth between these two things. And so I'm curious about the definitions of dimensions here and where we're going with that.
Yeah, right. And
Hmm.
to me, what's really interesting, the more we talk about this, I love these conversations. The more I'm realizing that the one definition is more of a domain understanding of the
Hmm.
data, and then the other definition is more of a physical or a structural definition of the data, like what's going on
Hmm.
structurally inside of the computer, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And for us as analysts and sense makers, that's part of our job is to bridge that
Mm.
for people is to be in that place of having that domain expertise in the data while getting the computer to pull out the answers that we need for our business questions.
Right, exactly. That's
Yep.
kind of this very valuable real estate that we occupy as sense makers between those two
Mm-hmm.
things. So now, the question of the day, what then from these two angles
Mm-hmm.
is a dimension? So a domain understanding of the word dimension could be that it's a unique aspect along which data points can vary or be measured. And this definition of the word data, I think it goes along quite well with the domain definition of data, facts and statistics.
Mm-hmm.
We're really thinking about the facts and statistics here. A dimension is really just a unique aspect of the data along which data points can vary or be measured.
For like one of the ways, like hearing this for me, this I'm trying to interpret these words, a unique aspect along which data points can vary or be measured. So this would very often be some sort of qualitative difference between one data point and another, to think of it more in a statistical sense in a way
Yeah.
of I'm about to have ice cream tonight, and is it going to be vanilla or chocolate or strawberry or mango sorbet or whatever?
And would I go to the ice cream shop on 2nd Street or would I go to the ice cream shop on 6th Street? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And so these types of ways of thinking about the word dimension, I think, are
Mm-hmm.
fairly common to us. And I just believe that a lot of practitioners have maybe a bias towards the domain understanding of these words, but actually there's a structural or a physical definition in Tableau we're speaking of here of the
Mm-hmm.
word dimension that might not get as much attention as it deserves. And so in
Yep.
Tableau, the physical or structural definition of a dimension is a column for which each unique combination of its members will create a new record. And we'll get into this in
Yep.
just a bit more here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we've got then these two differing ways of thinking about this word dimension. And as you've been really keen to teach me that it's important
Mm-hmm.
when there's multiple understandings of the same thing that
Mm-hmm.
we be able to hold both of those understandings, in our awareness together at one time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. My brain's going in different directions right now. When you're talking about, so a column is a column in our data. Unique combination is, um, so unique combination of members, is that multiple members of one column or multiple columns?
Let's get into it. I'll show you what I'm talking
Okay.
about. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about dimensions, we're talking about dimensionality or granularity in the
Mm-hmm.
data. And let's maybe take this little simple data set as a way to kind of answer the question and answer the confusion that you just
Mm-hmm.
had. In this simple data set where I've got 4 columns, country,
Mm-hmm.
year, cases, and population, which of these
Okay.
columns would be the dimensions?
Um, so initially, I'd seen most situations we'd use country and year as dimensions. That
In most
those are,
circumstances, right? Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the interesting things that we'll get to is that it's not sort of mandated by Tableau that those must be dimensions,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll talk about that
Yep.
later. Yeah, and I guess what I'm suggesting here, Jonathan, is that most
Mm-hmm.
Tableau practitioners would just say country and year, but
Mm-hmm.
not have actually ever gone through the deep thought to really understand, but why?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, what is it
Yeah.
about country and year that make those things dimensions? And so
Mm-hmm.
in this particular data set, country and year would be the dimensions because those are the 2 columns for which each unique combination of their members gives us a new row.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a new record
Yep.
for each unique combination of country and year, whereas cases and population just don't give me a new record. Each time there's a unique combination of cases and population, I don't get a new record in this data set.
Mm-hmm. Or if we happen to, that's an artifact of the dimensions being what they are.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that it's happenstance, not not because it's this intrinsic aspect of the thing that we're looking at.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad,
Yep.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
like if you think about our earlier episode, the first question to
Mm-hmm.
ask, we sort of stumbled on that thing where there were multiple records, and what we would have thought would have been a measure was actually in Tableau being treated like a dimension. And the reason was because
Mm-hmm.
um, it was sort of triggering this physical definition of what is a dimension. And I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times in my practice, people come to office hours, and in the work that I'm doing, I find that it can go both ways, right? Like there's our
Mm-hmm.
expectation of the way from our domain understanding of the data that things should be. But
Mm-hmm.
if the physicality of the actual real rows and columns and observations and variables that we're working with are behaving in another way, then you can actually have the dimensionality of the data be forced upon you, which could be in conflict with what you would hope for or expect for from your domain understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get a little bit deeper into this. We'll kind
Mm-hmm.
of peel it apart and dig in a little bit deeper. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying here that the definition in Tableau of a dimension is the set of columns for which each unique combination of its members will create a new record, like in that example,
Mm-hmm.
country and year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And to me, what's really interesting here is that we're saying create a new record,
Mm-hmm.
create a new record. So what that means
Yeah.
then is that they need to be created in some place, right? Like, so where is it
Mm-hmm.
then that this is occurring? This process of creating a new record based on the dimensionality of the data.
Mm-hmm. I would say the query results.
In the query results,
Yep.
right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
exactly. So we've talked about this earlier. There's this Tableau
Mm-hmm.
query process. This is an oversimplified model, but in general, what's happening is when we drag pills out onto the canvas, Tableau through VizQL is structuring a query that goes to the data source, and some type of aggregated query result is coming back from that query that got generated by Tableau. And so then it's in this local cache of query results here that we're going to get one new record for each unique combination of available dimension members.
Yep. Yeah, in a way, um, like to that unique combination, one of the ways I'll describe dimensions to people who know SQL is your dimensions are in the group by of the query.
Right.
So if I have, like in this example, we've got 3 countries, 2 years for each country. 3 times 2 is 6. We have 6 unique combinations of country and year in our data. Yep. And the new record piece, I really love that you did part of this, because it's one of those things I've tried to teach people SQL, sometimes been successful, sometimes not. And this place around those query results are something new. It's a transformation of the original data that maybe had millions or billions of records, or maybe a few thousand, into something new. And then we're rendering and operating on that data set from our next steps. So this really, really makes that clear.
Yep. And there's one other word that
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to be accurate and precise with my
Mm-hmm.
vocabulary here. For each unique combination of available dimension members,
Oh, I missed that one.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of what you have taught me about is the just
Mm-hmm.
weird behavior that you can get from Tableau when there's sparsity and when there's sparseness in the
Mm-hmm.
data, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this
Yeah.
other thing that we also need to keep in
Mm-hmm.
mind, is that the original data set that we're connecting to may not have a fully complete domain.
Mm-hmm.
And there could be not every member of every dimension is present in the data set that we're connecting to.
Yep. Yeah. My archetypal example of that is survey data. And let's say we've got survey data, and there's a question with like mostly satisfied, satisfied, unsatisfied, very unsatisfied, like these 4 things. And it may be when we're filtering for people aged 45 and up who live in Maine. There's nobody who answered mostly satisfied or unsatisfied. And so they're not going to be in our query results. Tableau's not going to render those values for us, and we're not going to see that in our visualizations because it's not available at that time.
Which can cause all sorts of confounding difficulty when you're just trying to render the viz on the screen, and you know that not satisfied should be one of the options, but it's just not there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is a great point to loop back to the previous video on that first question of what is the grain of your data? Because if we really understood the grain of our data at that point, we'd go, oh, we have a result, we have a response for each of our respondents. We don't have every possible response for every question in the data. That would be a different grain of data.
Yep. Yeah. So a long way to go with this. We're going to keep going. What we've managed to accomplish here, which I'm quite pleased with, is we've managed to define from two different perspectives inside of Tableau, what do we mean by the word dimension? And next we'll come back and we'll look a little bit more at this concept of aggregation. So just to finish things out, I've got my kind of aspiration to finish each episode with some kind of Zen cone. What we've done here today is we've got these two understandings of dimension. One is domain and the other is structural or physical. To grasp them both is quite essential, lest our view be too superficial.
Great rhyme there, but and not but and it gets at this both and of it that's been this whole thread through our conversation today.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jonathan. We'll see you back for the next one.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Action Analytics.